What is up, guys? So today we're going to be talking about how to make better decisions. So with that, if you guys are new to this channel, my name is Groce. I'm a self-taught designer and I work with large brands such as Disney, Dannon, and Huggies. So with that, this channel is all about being the best designer you can be and getting paid like you should. So with that, how do we make better decisions? Now before I go into this, I just want to start off by saying why I'm talking about this is because I'm reading this really good book by Ray Dalio and it's called Principles. If you guys are wondering why I'm reading this book, of course I always talk about deconstructing or reverse engineering people that are already at the top and just finding that path that they're on and taking it. You have to catch up before you can innovate. With that said, the reason I'm reading this book is to get into the mind of somebody who's extremely successful and who has already set up processes within his own routines, his thinking, and his work that have set him up for continuous success. So that this book is called Principles, and it talks about Ray Dalio's decision-making process and what his decision-making process is, and it's actually really interesting. Before he makes a decision, or when he makes a decision, he writes down the criteria of why he decided to make that decision or that action, so that when down the road he looks back at that piece of paper or that criteria that led him up to that decision was a good criteria for either a good decision or a bad decision. And basically this is a repeatable he does this over time during all the decisions he makes in his business, so that he can basically create a repeatable good decision making machine. Because if those criteria that he's using to make these decisions, or some of these decisions, and they end up being bad business decisions or just bad decisions, he wants to cut relying on those type of criteria when making decisions. And it's basically just like being self-aware. So taking the criteria that leads him up to his thought process or his action or his decision, and then later down the road, what is the outcome? If the outcome's bad, okay, we're not relying on these criteria. We need to cut those out. If they're good, okay, let's repeat these criteria and make more decisions based on these criteria. So that's what that is. It's basically just talking about how he's created a repeatable process through the breakdown of his thought process. And this is very interesting because, you know, most of the time we're making decisions just because of gut feeling. There's thoughts that happen prior to the action, but they're either subconscious or they're not really looked at. So to make them concrete and actually be self-aware of what those criteria, what those thoughts were onto paper, and then being able to, in the future, look back on those thoughts and be able to say, okay, those thoughts and criteria or that rationale is flawed, let's not use them and cut them out of your thinking. It's really creating a very fluid system, because otherwise the brain will forget. You'll forget, what your thought process was as you're moving through that decision. But to be aware of that whole line of thought and be able to, edit them, this is a great system that Ray Dalio in his book Principles has, really gone through. So this is something that I'm going to try for myself. I'm very into streamlining systems. In my talking and in my language, I always talk about systems, and it's very important not only us to be able to create great websites, but like I talk about, we are a website, a system in ourselves, and be able to streamline that so that we can do better work, more efficient work, and being able to understand our thought process, how we make our decisions, and when we win further up here, our products, our decision making, our everything after that becomes a lot more efficient, becomes a lot better, and we learn how to consistently make better decisions. So with that, guys, definitely check this book out. Take this 2 cents that I've gotten from this book, how to map out your thought process. I made this decision based on this criteria, and whether, after that decision has been made for, a little bit, and you can then tell if it was a bad or a good decision, then go back to the criteria and be like, yep, that criteria is good, let's continue using that for future decision making. And if it's not, let's discard those criteria and not use those in our thought process or in our criteria for making a decision again. So I thought this was very, something I should bring up to you guys. I really like always talking about the mind, because once you master your mind, once you're able to fluently maneuver yourself, your thoughts and your actions, then the things that you are making are reflection. Your work is a reflection of what you have in here. If you're efficient, your work will be efficient. If you're clear and considered in your thinking, your work and your products will be clear and considered. So with that, guys, food for thought. Book down in the description, so check it out. See if you want to, attack this. There's a lot more within this book, but this is a huge piece of the puzzle that I've seen myself and that I've thought to share with you guys for free. All right, guys. Groce, self-taught designer, out.